Welcome to Educate, Inform, and Challenge. My name is Teresa MacLennan. I'm the Executive Director of the Women and Children's Shelter of Barrie. We are so thankful that you are here with us today. The goal of our program is to talk about the lives and experiences of women. We talk about gender-based violence, human trafficking, women in business and leadership, and we really just try to dive into the lives and experiences of all women. And so again, thank you for being with us. We also want to acknowledge and thank our Indigenous community for allowing us to share in this space, to have these conversations. We thank you for your heritage, your history, and again, we're just incredibly proud to have these conversations. So, without further ado, I'm going to be very happy to welcome my guest today, and we're really going to start to dive into talking about women in business, the entrepreneurial spirit, and what the journey can look like for all women who decide that they want to take that step into business. So welcome to my wonderful guest. And you know what, I'm going to just put the floor over to you. Would you like to introduce yourself and really maybe just give us a picture about all the multiple hats that you wear?
Thank you, Teresa. I'm so happy to be here and having this conversation with you today. I'm Genevieve Lagace-Gore. It's a very French name with a little bit of an English twist at the end. And the many hats that I wear, I think many of us have similar hats. Mm-hmm. So I'm a proud mom of two boys, Marcus, who's 15, and Jacob, who's 12. I'm a wife. I have a wonderful husband, Greg, we've been together over 23 years. And I am a business owner. I run Marquee benefits here in Barrie. I work in the consulting world of employee benefits and retirement plans. And it's an exciting venture for me. Sort of part of that journey we're going to talk about today is how we got to how became an entrepreneur. And I was thinking when you said to me about hats is I like to also say my own hat, like my own person, right? My own Genevieve hat, right? And I think that's important because if we forget about us and what we as women are and who we are in our personal and business life, I think everyone else misses out, right? Feed ourselves first. I always believe in that.
I love that. And you know what? That is really what our show is all about, right? And yeah. I know that there's going to be women who are going to be watching and listening today, and your journey mm-hmm. and how you embrace who you are, because that's always a thread in the work that you do, will speak to them. Mm-hmm. And it speaks to me. So I think that it's absolutely wonderful. So let's start at the beginning, because you have this very eclectic, busy life, obviously, mm-hmm. with two young boys and your own business. But when you were a young girl, what did you think you would be doing in your life? Did you have other dreams and goals?
I did. I had such an evolution when I think back of when I was a young girl. So I moved to Ontario when I was 12, and I came from a mid-sized city in Quebec, and I came here because I was a figure skater. So I came here to skate at the Mariposa Skating Club in 1889, and that was my life as a young girl. As I was an athlete, I was competitive. That was my dream. I wanted to go to the Olympics, and I was blessed to have a family that gave me that opportunity to skate with the best, right? I also skated at the Granite Club, and I learned so much from that life. And unfortunately, I didn't reach all the goals that I wanted, right? Sometimes that happens, good or bad, mistakes or injuries, things like that. It did put a great foundation for me. And when I was 18, I had to figure out what was going to be my next step. And I knew I wanted to go to university. I wanted to finish my high school. I left the athlete life and became a normal teenager, if that's even a thing. And I knew that I wanted to go to university, but I also experienced at the same time in those, those years, a difficult financial position in our family. And so I had to pave my own way. And after, all of the financial implications of being an athlete and skating at a competitive level, I had to start from scratch again. So at 18, 19, I found a way to get to university on my own. And how was that? OSAP. OSAP, a part-time job. And my goal at that time wasn't very specific. I knew I wanted to do something in business. I didn't have a defined dream at that point, because you got to imagine having to let go of another dream and knowing that I didn't want to be a coach. That was never my inspiration, is to become a skating coach, and that just wasn't my path. So I took a total 180 and really wanted to rebuild myself. And so I got the student loan. I started working part-time. I went to Wilfrid Laurier University. I got myself a BA in psychology with a minor in business. And I started that new journey. But I will tell you, because as a teenager, I had some financial barriers and understood the possible loss of a risk, because I came from a family of entrepreneurs. There are risks. It made me, in my early 20s, very gun shy. So for me, my dream initially was, I want a secure career. I was very ambitious, but also was very risk averse. So it's amazing how our younger years can sometimes shape our next decision and the decision after that.
So maybe let's just open that up a little bit more, because I think I really love the language you're using about having that feeling and that sense of being risk adverse. Because some element of being risk adverse is very healthy. It helps us to plan better. It helps us to think about all the things that could and could not happen.
That's right.
When you think about, what you've identified as feeling risk adverse, where do you think that came from? Because some folks may live their lives where there is an understanding that you do live risky, let's say, and take those chances and you deal with what happens, right? And then others have a more cautious life, and that can be part of our upbringing. But for you, where do you think that those feelings of risk adverse came from?
It really came from some hardship with, my parents, and dreams that they had set in business that didn't come to fruition. And that was hard. And at the time, being so young, I don't think I even understood the scope. But I knew enough that I wasn't willing in my young 20s to go into the entrepreneurial route of not having a steady paycheck, having that security of an income. Because at a very young age, from 18 on, I really took on my own way, with their support. Their emotional and their emotional support was always there. Always there. It was just financial barriers, right?
Absolutely. And maybe we're going to talk a little bit more about some systemic barriers, and finances is one of those things.
Exactly.
And then there's personal barriers too. I'm curious about that. You mentioned you have got two kind of preteen, teen boys, and you've been married for, over 20 years. What impact did creating that life, marriage, children, change your thoughts about, again, how do I create kind of financial stability in my life, because I have these other priorities right now?
Exactly. And I find that I was very blessed to meet my partner so young. I was just about 21 when we met. And so I had a partner in crime for this whole journey. And I had someone to be my sounding board, my cheerleader. And we really approached our family life together. And so for me, as I built my, you know, coming out of school and getting into the insurance field, it's funny, I've been in the insurance field for 20 years in different variations, right? And within my roles, I was always, even though I needed that security, I was very ambitious. I wanted to move up in the organization. I wanted to take leadership roles. It was part of my personality. So I found opportunities within the organization I worked with to learn and to grow and to expand. And then as a family, my husband and I chose where we wanted to live, and we talked about what are the benefits of, at the time we were in Waterloo for many years. We came back to the Barrie area to really be close to family, and that's the community we wanted to live in. And together we kind of grew in our role. But it's such an important, I think as women, it's so important to understand where you want to go, but what are you willing to sacrifice or not? And for me, that work-life balance was number one. I wasn't going to get lost in an 80-hour week. You know, I think sometimes I thought, oh, I'll go work on Bay Street and I'll be like, you know, one of those powerful women. And I love that. I want that. But as I went through my life, and my priorities changed a bit. And it was about finding the opportunities that were going to harmonize that, right?
I love this conversation because I think it is so key for all of us, and it's a great description about the choices that women have to make in juggling and balancing the things that they want in their life. And of course, I mean, women with children, women with a partner, all of that takes a forever commitment, right?
Absolutely.
And then also having careers. And what we know is that even though women have careers with children, the majority of raising the kids still falls to women.
Yeah.
And we're definitely seeing that change, which is a wonderful thing, right? Yeah. And I think that we're going to talk a lot more about how you have found that balance, about what works for you, and maybe some of those sacrifices that you felt you needed to make that work for you. And so we wouldn't even really call them sacrifices. It's just like you say, that work-life balance that you had to find.
Exactly.
So we're going to dive into that a lot more. And I do want to talk to you a little bit more about if you ran into any kind of systemic barriers, things outside of yourself that were holding you back from the career and the life that you envisioned for yourself. So please stay with us. We're going to be right back to carry on this great conversation, and we look forward to seeing you soon. Welcome back to Educate, Inform, and Challenge. We are having this great conversation with my friend Genevieve from Marquee Benefits, and we're just really talking about her journey to becoming a woman entrepreneur, president of her own business, and just the personal journey to get there. And we're also going to talk about some of the systemic things that Genevieve experienced. And so welcome back. Let's start to unpack that a little bit more. Personal barriers. We talked a little bit about being risk adverse and the difficult decisions that women have to try and make in terms of balancing raising a family, wanting to start their own business, and having sights on a career. What was some of the messages that you were hearing in your own mind that told you to, yes, go for it, but also told you not to?
Yeah.
Talk to us about those personal barriers.
A lot of it is confidence, right? In knowing that you are an expert in your field and growing into that role. And I've been in the benefits industry now since 2007. And so at the time when I got into the benefits industry, my oldest was 1 year old. And I was, I wanted to work in the Barrie area. I wanted to have that work-life balance we talked about. That was an important goal, so that I wasn't commuting to the city any longer. And I really found a passion in benefits. What was great is I was in the insurance industry from the life insurance side and then the accident side. But when I found benefits, I found passion. I found something that spoke to me. And I wanted that balance, I wanted that challenge. And our industry is very, there's a lot of women in our industry, which I found was so interesting and so motivating, because at the firm that I started, the majority of the consultants, the vice presidents, were women. And so right off the bat, I felt comfortable. And I felt like this was the path I needed to take to grow.
Why do you think that there is more women in that career path?
I always wondered that. I know that insurance traditionally would be back in more 80s and 90s, I think, was mostly led by men. And we really saw a shift. And maybe it's the role of what benefits is. And it's very driven in education as well, and being that partner for our clients. We're the go-between between the clients, the employees, and the insurance company. So it's a very, when I say consultative, it's really a great industry for that. So it really fit well with my goals of where I wanted to lead my career.
And was it helpful to you to be thinking about moving into that career because you had and saw other women predominantly there already?
It did, because they became mentors, not just in the firm, but as you're going to events, you're going to conferences, you are able to find like-minded people that really, and you can ask my colleagues, I am driven by learning from others, from my peers. I find that is the best way to learn and to problem solve, right, for our clients. So I just it's like sucking all the information out of these women that had so much experience. And to this day, I still learn from them. And seeing women even at the insurance carriers being in leadership roles. So that was really motivating. And I moved up. I kept striving for the next role, from service representative to financial analyst to account representative, ultimately to a consultant. Some of the barriers and I know some women probably experience this, sadly, sometimes we work in toxic environments. And before this new role, my business, I was in that position. I was in an organization that, for lack of a better word, was toxic. And that's where self-doubt really kicks in. And it isn't until you leave that you realize the impact of an environment that was difficult on your confidence, on sort of your fear of taking that next step. And it took some reflection and assistance, really, to find myself again and to take that leap and to have the confidence that I had the knowledge and I could partner with the right people and be the type of business owner that I wanted to be, to consult and help my clients in the way that I see as beneficial all around.
So let me just ask you this about that toxic work environment. Mm-hmm. We as an agency support women who've lived in abuse, mm-hmm. and they come out the other end, mm-hmm. And we talk to them about not pushing against or denying the experience of violence that they've had, because it is a part of them. Yeah. But what learning, what growth can they take from that experience and now incorporate into their lives?
Exactly.
So thinking about that toxic environment, what are the gifts and the learnings that you got from that toxic environment that have actually been very helpful for you?
Mm-hmm. For me, I'm a big believer in mental health and getting the mental health support you need. So I have, throughout the last 20 years, I've sought assistance through different challenges, and that was one of them. And I think it's important to get perspective and also learn what are the things, what your boundaries are. You learn what your boundaries are, you learn to speak up, and to trust your gut, to trust your inner self that you know what's right for you. And so when you are in a situation that doesn't feel right, then you take the steps to remove yourself from that situation. And many times when you do, you find what you were looking for.
And I think, even just working in a toxic environment, I've had that experience myself as well. And one of the great learnings that I had was it taught me how I did not want to be an employer, how I did not want to be someone's supervisor.
Exactly.
It taught me about the kind of work environment that I wanted to create and that I myself wanted to work in.
Exactly.
And we always hope that we're not going to have negative experiences, wherever we work. We're going to have great colleagues and supervisors, right? Yeah. A great deal of learning can come from places that are not so positive. And it just really sounds like you did a lot of reflecting and soul searching, from that experience. Mm-hmm. And it also made you question, okay, what do I want for my life and how do I make that happen? And one of the things that you mentioned was that you pulled in the people that you needed to support you through that journey. So let's talk about that. Like, who did you feel you really needed to have in your corner? Who did you pull in, and use the people around you to further your own personal goals and dreams?
Yeah. So I found the right partners for me so that I could take the leap into business ownership with partners that were like-minded, had the right customer approach, or because I'm service driven. I think if you service a lot for your clients, that's really where the reward is. So I partnered with two very important men, so Tom McBride and Christian Robillard, and we partnered together because they knew what I wanted to build, and they saw that potential in me, but it also gave me the business acumen that I needed. Right? You work in the business, you work in your field, but you also need to understand business. And that was a missing piece that I found as I dove into business ownership that they were able to provide, and then tap into other resources in our community to continue that learning process, so that I felt like I was taking a calculated risk and that the risk were going to be rewarded. And I feel that every day that I've made that change.
So did you encounter any what we would call systemic barriers, right? I mean, you have your dreams and your goals, you know where you're headed, where you want to be. Yeah. And it sounds like it's a forever journey for you, because you like to, like a sponge, you take in information, you learn, you grow, and you think, what's the next thing, right? But sometimes as women, we can hit these, there's always the personal barriers, the self-talk that we have to kind of get out of our head. Yeah. But the systemic barriers, did you face any of those?
For me, it was financially, finding this financial support to feel comfortable taking that leap was my biggest barrier. And as you know, you have a family, you have responsibilities, you have goals, you want to own a home, you want to make sure your kids are well, prepared for schooling later on. There is quite a bit of that pressure, and I was patient. I was patient to listen to when I thought it was going to be the right time with the right people, and knew that I was protected financially as I took that leap. That's what I needed. Others might not need as much of that safety net. Yeah. But, that investment to go into business for yourself I took my time. I didn't go in blindly. I reviewed the pros and cons, and I feel very comfortable with my position now.
I love it.
Because I
Very
took that.
calculated.
Yeah.
Like you did so much kind of pre-work, you know,
Yeah.
and current work and work for the future, right? To just create the work-life balance in your career that
That's right.
you always pictured for yourself, and that could change as well. And so you won't believe this, but we are almost out of time.
Oh my God, that went quick.
It does go quick, right? Because, I mean, just unpacking, and I think that your personal journey is just a wonderful inspiration to women who are listening. I did just want to ask you briefly just about the Barrie Professional Women's Association and just what support, what's your connection to them?
So I'm really proud to be a member of the Business and Professional Women's of Barrie, of course, but it's also an organization that's provincial, national, and has international ties. So I'm raising boys, and I believe that's a really strong responsibility for me to raise these great men. But I also want to raise women. I want to raise their interests. I want to improve their opportunities. And this organization is nonprofit. We work with local charities and, of course, the shelter. And we're really driven to help women issues, right? We have a huge component on advocacy. And we led the provincial initiative to bring awareness for human trafficking, right? Bring in our local representative and provincial representative to bring attention to human trafficking. And now it's a national platform. And what we're doing with our organizations through workshops and conferences and networking, we really learn from each other and we up our skills that way. And we actually host the next provincial conference next year in June, and we're going to focus on women leadership. Leadership for women in the political views, arenas, and also making sure that we have representation on board of directors.
I can't believe how quickly our time has gone by. Thank you so much for being here today, and thank you so much to our community for joining us in this conversation. We really hope that this story has inspired you if you're listening, and you know what, reach out to us if you need support, or you know, we are going to be sharing Genevieve's contact information if you'd like to talk to her or know more about her business. We encourage you to reach out to her. Thank you for being with us here today. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.